The Murder Shelf Book Club contains disturbing content related to real-life crimes. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to Chatsunami, a variety podcast that discusses topics from gaming and films to anime and general interests.
Previously on Chatsunami, we've analysed what makes a good horror game, conducted a retrospective on Pierce Brosnan's run as James Bond, and listened to us take deep dives into both the Sonic and Halo franchises.
Also, if you're an anime fan, then don't forget to check us out on our sub-series, Chatsunani, where we dive into the world of anime. So far, we've reviewed things like Death Note, Princess Mononoke, and the hit Beyblade series.
If that sounds like your cup of tea, then you can check us out on Spotify, iTunes, and all good podcast apps.
As always, stay safe,
stay awesome, and most importantly,
stay hydrated.
Welcome to the Murder Shelf Book Club podcast. I am your host, Jill. I have an announcement, so attention, everyone. I am going to once again be participating in Creators Row at CrimeCon Denver from September 5th to 7th, 2025. You can save 10% on your badge by using my code, all one word and all lowercase letters, Murder Shelf. So you just visit www.crimecon.com/CC25 to purchase your badge. We had an incredible time over the past 2 years at CrimeCon, chatting, hanging out, having a couple drinks, talking cases, and book suggestions. And I think this year's event in Denver is going to be the best yet. So stay tuned for more details as they come out. Make sure you're subscribed, and I cannot wait to see my murder bookies in Denver. Today, I have an intriguing update to share regarding a case I meticulously examined over 3 years ago. Back in 2022, I presented a mind-blowing series based on the book Bone Deep by Charles Bosworth Jr. and Joel Schwartz. These were episodes 40 to 44 that delved into the tragic murder of Betsy Faria and the wrongful arrest of her husband, Russ Faria. From the very first few pages of this book, I was utterly appalled. Russ was accused of murdering his wife after returning home to find her lifeless on the floor. It immediately was alarmingly clear that this man was innocent. And despite the overwhelming evidence establishing his alibi, Russ was convicted in 2013. And I found it nearly impossible to wrap my mind around such a grotesque miscarriage of justice. Defense attorney Joel Schwartz refused to back down, with the Farias fighting right beside Russ. After spending 3.5 long years in prison, Russ was granted a second trial. And thank goodness, this had a new and competent judge. He was ultimately acquitted in 2015. However, to this day, the prosecutor in both these trials, Leah Askey Cheney, continues to deny any mistake on her part, which I find utterly reprehensible. This case exemplifies the severe issues with prosecutorial misconduct and prosecutorial immunity, which should not be a blanket 100%. It's disheartening to see someone in the position of Leah Askey Cheney refusing to take responsibility for her actions. And in my view, she is a disgrace to the legal profession. Enter newly elected Lincoln County head prosecutor Mike Wood, who ensured that a proper investigation was conducted. Now, with Russ acquitted, attention turned to the last person who saw Betsy Faria alive, her friend, Pam Hupp. Nervous about Lincoln County re-investigating the Betsy Faria murder, Hupp launches into a convoluted plot to frame Russ by murdering an innocent man, Louis Gumpenberger. Well, she was arrested and pled guilty to Louis's murder, resulting in a life sentence. Wood now ensured that a proper investigation was conducted, leading to Hupp being indicted for the murder of Betsy Faria. The second Hupp trial is scheduled for August 2016, just 14 months from now. And I urge you to re-listen to episodes 40 to 44, the August 2022 update, and update episode 70. There's just so much information surrounding this case, including speculation about the circumstances of Pam Hupp's mother's death. But wait, you might be wondering how a man with a solid alibi could be convicted in the first place. Well, that question lies at the heart of today's update. Welcome to episode 124, Karma. Bone Deep, part 6, 7, I don't know, I've lost track. One of these parts. So, former Lincoln County law enforcement officer Michael Merkel is back in the news. So in previous update, episode 70 in 2023, I reported that Merkel had resigned after being arrested for felony stalking and harassment. And this occurred after he attempted to intimidate a sheriff's investigator who was re-investigating the Betsy Faria murder case. Now, in June 2025, Mike Merkel is making headlines for being charged with felony perjury related to the Faria trials. During the investigation of Betsy Faria's murder, Blue Star, a chemical reagent that reacts with blood, was used in the Faria home, where Merkel took digital photographs of the crime scene. In Russ's first trial, during direct examination by Assistant Prosecutor Hicks, Merkel testified that on January 3, 2012, he used Blue Star to locate blood evidence, describing the luminescence as, quote, just like following a trail of breadcrumbs, end quote, from the living room into the kitchen. Now, during cross-examination by Joel Schwartz, Merkel stated that the photos he took showed, quote, absolutely nothing, end quote, due to a camera malfunction. But Merkel had seen the luminescence, and that was good enough for the jury. Now, in 2015, during Russ Faria's second trial, Merkel again testified that due to a camera malfunction, there were no photographs from that day. I am now paraphrasing from the Merkel probable cause affidavit about this trial testimony. Russ Faria's defense attorney, Joel Schwartz, clarified, asking Mike Merkel, so there were no pictures developed that day? And Merkel responded, I don't believe so. No, sir. Schwartz then proceeded to hand Merkel a stack of photographs. What's this? Schwartz asked Merkel. Take your time. It would be photographs of that day, Merkel replied. Did it show absolutely nothing? Schwartz continued. As far as the chemical luminescence, no, sir, it does not, Merkel said. Now, this evidence that Schwartz produced in court directly contradicted Merkel's testimony of seeing Blue Star react to blood in the Faria house, and that the camera had malfunctioned, and there were no photographs. In fact, there was no blood trail of breadcrumbs, so to speak, nor glowing blue luminescence, not in the kitchen or anywhere else. The first jury found Russ Faria guilty of murder, sending him to jail, which was based on lies. And I believe this piece of fiction was deliberately created because the photographic evidence did not support the prosecution's case. Now, to me, this is obstruction of justice, not mere perjury. But Merkel is charged with a Class A felony, perjury in a criminal trial, to secure a conviction of murder. The prosecutor asked for a $250,000 cash-only bond, but the judge ruled that Merkel only had to produce $50,000 and is now confined to his home with an ankle monitor. He can only leave the house for medical reasons and church. Special Prosecutor Krameyer told the media, quote, "The perjured testimony provided in the case against Russell Faria resulted in a wrongly convicted man being sent to the Missouri Department of Corrections and spending several years of his life incarcerated. One of the pillars of our criminal justice system is that citizens of this country can depend upon honesty and integrity of those individuals that are entrusted with the responsibility of investigating potential criminal conduct. When that ceases to exist, the faith and trust in our judicial system is completely eroded." End quote. So in court on June 10th, 2025, Mike Merkel's defense attorney, Joel Eisenstein, laughed. And he said, quote, "We'll go to trial and see what happens." End quote. So with this background, I want to thank you both for joining me on the Murder Shelf Book Club podcast.
Of course. Thank you for having us once again.
Well, we have another update.
That we do.
They take their time about these updates. I know the wheel of justice turns very slowly.
Yeah.
It's hard. It's hard waiting. It's hard waiting for me. You have to be losing your mind. Or are you coping with this well?
I'm doing pretty well. I learned patience over my time away, shall we say.
No, that's true.
Patience is one of those things that you learn. And over that time, there were times early on when I had gotten my hopes up only for them to be dashed because of the corruption and whatnot that was going on at the time in Lincoln County. And so I kind of taught myself just to be patient, wait for things to happen in their own time. I have a good faith in God. There's an old saying that everything happens in his time. So I've learned to just let things happen the way they're going to happen. There's nothing really I can do to control them. And when they do, I can do what I can to help.
Truer words. I can appreciate that. So listen, the last time we spoke was about the same, I was going to say gentleman, but I just can't quite say it. The same man, Mike Merkel. And I believe he had been charged with harassment and felony stalking.
Yes. That was related to my case because he was stalking an officer by the name of Randy Lambert, who is investigating him on this case. And so the things he did to Randy is what he got charged with, him and his wife and his brother, the last time we spoke.
I understand he was supposed to go to trial in May, but that was postponed. I'm assuming, maybe incorrectly, that it's because of what has just happened.
Well, kind of partially, yes.
But we can't talk about it.
But we're not really allowed to talk about it. But somebody turned state's evidence and basically spilled the beans on him. And he ended up with 2 felony perjury charges, which each carries a sentence of 10 to life. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, he was, thank God, was an officer of the courts. He was a police officer. He took an oath to uphold laws. And I think that we, as a society, that we make our officers hold themselves to a higher level.
Well, they should, but some of them don't.
Right? Well, he did not. And what an embarrassment for law enforcement he has become. Thank goodness for somebody seeing the truth and speaking the truth. So he's gone from being charged with stalking, harassment of an officer who is only doing his job, reinvestigating the investigation. And now it's really gotten serious.
Yes. And, he keeps trying to say that he's not guilty. And then some of the same things you said was what the prosecution was arguing in court yesterday about.
Why don't you tell me what went on in court yesterday? Because you're a witness. You guys were there.
we kind of give you the little bitty prelude to it. So last Tuesday, Mike Merkel was charged with 2 counts of felony perjury. So that was a week ago yesterday. And he was supposed to have turned himself in on Thursday, 2 days later. And he did not. His lawyer was arguing with the judge about the bond. And I personally think his lawyer advised his client not to turn himself in. I can't prove that one way or the other. But either way, he did not turn himself in on Tuesday.
You mean Thursday?
Or Thursday, as he was supposed to and as was expected by the prosecution and the court. And so they set a bond hearing for yesterday, and we were there for that. And he actually did show up to turn himself in. Nobody recognized him because he gained about 30 pounds or so.
Russ lost 25 or 30, and he gained it.
Yes, I know who found it anyway. And his lawyer got up there with the dog and pony show, to put it lightly. And all he could really argue about was that this was a victimless crime.
A 13-year-old victimless crime, so why are we even here?
Yes, and the prosecution pointed out some of the things that you did, that this was an officer of the court, somebody that should be held to a higher standard, somebody that we expect to serve and protect us, that did this, which makes it even more egregious. He also said my name in court and turned around and pointed at me and said, I don't think Mr. Faria sitting over here would think that it's a victimless crime. He lost 3.5 years of his life. You can't get that back. His lawyer then pointed out that I was monetarily awarded so that it should be okay.
Oh my God.
And the prosecutor went on to say that, there's no amount of money that can buy time. And
yeah,
he even asked me again in open court, if it was okay that I lost my time and got money, and I shook my head no. And it was just kind of a farce. The lawyer seems to be as bad of a person as his client.
I understand that we have an adversarial system, that everybody's entitled to a defense. And I believe in that. I do. But sometimes I have to scratch my head. It's a good thing I didn't become an attorney, because I thought about it. I really did. But I have to scratch my head and think, how do you, in all good conscience, stand there and defend people who have done terrible things? It's not for me. I can't do that.
It would be a difficult task to do. And in this particular person's case, and my attorney does this, he defends criminals, but he gets them the lightest sentence that he can. If they did something and they're good for it, there's not a whole lot that he can do for them. But this individual himself is a criminal. His name is Joel Eisenstein, and anybody can look him up on the internet, just like I did. And you can find out that the individual has had his law license suspended no less than 5 times.
Oof.
Now, I don't know about where you live, where anybody else lives, but if you get your driver's license suspended 3 times, they take it away and revoke it. You don't get to drive anymore. If you're a doctor and you get your license suspended even 1 time, you'll have a hard time practicing medicine anywhere. But yet this guy can get his license suspended 5 times, one of which for sending threatening emails to another attorney.
Whoa.
Again, this is all out there on the internet. I'm not telling tales on this guy. He's an unscrupulous person and a person without integrity, just like his client.
Well, yeah, that's how he does it then. He doesn't care.
Exactly.
He doesn't care. Yeah. What he allegedly lied about was at the heart of your trial. They're accusing you of murder. And they're saying, he said under oath, under direct examination, that he did Blue Star testing, so luminol testing. Here's a chemical reagent. When it's exposed to blood, it glows this blue luminescence. And he said he took pictures and saw this positive reaction. But, the camera broke and the pictures didn't come out. Well, if I'm a juror and I'm hearing that, you think, oh, okay, so there was a blood trail. Somebody had cleaned this up. And it was all lies.
Correct.
Why do that? I mean, I don't expect you to have an answer. It just drives me crazy.
You can't fix stupid. You can't fix stupid. And they were so cocky, they thought that they could get away with it. They felt like they were untouchable.
Yes, I think you're right. He does it at the first trial. He went back and did the same damn thing 2 years later at the second trial.
They were dumbfounded when Joel was produced the pictures. Leah Askey literally turned to Joel and mouthed at the trial, "Where the hell did you get those?" But in court yesterday, what was it that they said?
They said that she offered Joel the pictures multiple times and told him he could see them anytime he wanted.
And he never came to see them or get them.
Are you kidding me?
Old big lie.
No, not true. Absolutely not true.
This is part of the lawyer's argument, who is also a friend of Leah Womack, Askey, Cheney, or whatever she's calling herself this week.
Well, that one is just never going to admit that she was wrong about anything ever.
No, I got off because of a little thing called prosecutorial immunity, which, I like to talk about a lot. I know we've talked about it in our previous meetings, but, it gives prosecutors carte blanche to do whatever they want to anybody. It can happen to you, me, or anybody else. And it shouldn't exist, but that's how she got off. And my hope in this current case with Mike Merkel is that he'll be too afraid to face the music and will want a lighter sentence and will spill the beans on the people that were higher up than him that had more to do with it than him, namely Leah Cheney. I'm hoping Ryan McCarrick gets his comeuppance too.
Yes. It's just so outrageous. This obviously started falling apart when you were acquitted at the second trial. But I have to say, when a new prosecutor came in, Mike Wood?
Mike Wood.
Yes. He seemed to come in and think, this smells bad. Because as far as I know, he really began making serious changes in Lincoln County.
Well, Mike Wood was actually working in that office when my case was there, when I was in Lincoln County. And he became so sickened and appalled by the things that were going on that he left. And he went to work in neighboring St. Charles County for a couple of years, got some experience and whatnot. But his main goal was to go back up there and be a prosecutor and try and change some of the wrongs that he was witnessing at the time. Also, the new sheriff that's in town up there is a man by the name of Rick Harrell. And a similar thing happened. He was actually serving our country over in Afghanistan and heard about these egregious acts happening in his own hometown. And he said that when he got done serving our country, that he was going to come back and try and make a change. And sure enough, he came back and ran for sheriff at the same time Mike Wood ran for prosecutor, and they both won.
Yeah, good. Yeah, it starts to smell to high heaven, and then even people who are apolitical start to take note of what's happening.
Yeah.
Can't even believe it.
It's gross.
Yeah. I did see a certain video of somebody doing a perp walk.
Oh, yeah.
I have to tell you, that was very satisfying.
It was quite satisfying to observe live. I can assure you. The only thing that would have made it better is they would have handcuffed him in court, but they didn't. They took him out of the courtroom, and then they handcuffed him, and then they walked him across. But it was still quite satisfying for all of us to watch that, including probably at least a half a dozen police officers that came out of the police station, not for security purposes, but just to witness the act.
What is an embarrassment?
Yes.
It would have made it better if the bug shot, he'd have been an orange.
That would have been good, but I don't expect they ever put him in orange since he was binding out right away. But you still got to wear your ankle monitor. And, I kind of made a joke. If you've seen the video of the perp walk, he's wearing a blue shirt and khaki pants. And as I mentioned earlier, he's put on probably about 30 pounds. So I kind of figure that's the same color as the uniforms at Culver's. Maybe he's working over there eating too many Butterburgers.
Well, he better enjoy it while he can. This is like at least a 10-year sentence.
To life, yes.
If he gets convicted.
Yes. And if he doesn't make a deal.
Right. Well, I would advise him to make a deal. I read the probable cause affidavit, and I am not an attorney. I am just a person who likes true crime. And I read through this, and of course it's written by the prosecution, of course, so the defense isn't part of this document. He looks screwed to me.
Yes, I read the whole thing myself.
Everybody is presumed innocent until proven guilty. He's just guilty until charged and sentenced.
Well, yeah, everybody is presumed innocent, but I beg to differ in this particular case because, I mean, if you do your particular crime in the middle of open court, where there's a court reporter there recording everything that's said and done, and there's at least 50, 60 people in the courtroom, are you really presumed innocent? I mean, you may as well do it in front of TV cameras, right?
Seriously. I mean, his testimony is there. He's sworn in. He's saying a lot of this under direct questioning by the prosecution. So it's not like, Joel Schwartz had turned him around or confused him. And he does it again. That was the part that put me over the top. He doubles down on it. I have allegedly committed perjury at this trial, and I'm going to allegedly commit perjury again. Carol, you are 100% right. The arrogance, I am untouchable, I am powerful. I cannot think of another motivation. I love talking about people's motivation and seeing what their behavior tells you, but I've never seen this man in the flesh. So I can only kind of guess, but I will defer to you because I think you're 100% right.
Yeah, I agree. And the biggest one of them is Leah. She's the ringleader of them all. And, she has doubled down. And in her most recent Dateline interview, which everybody, including people from Dateline and Keith Morrison, were surprised that she even did. She said, I have never seen any evidence to prove to me that Russ Faria was innocent. And I followed that up and contended that with, I've never seen any evidence to prove to me that Leah Cheney is anything but a moron. But, that's a personal opinion.
Well, we're allowed to have personal opinions, and I like to back up mine with facts. Right. I was saying this to my husband last night. I said, I remember picking up the book Bone Deep. It kind of sounded interesting. And I was 3-4 pages in, and I literally jumped up. I ran to him and I said, this guy is being railroaded. He's innocent, and they're going to convict him for murder. Like, listen to this. I don't know if you remember me telling you, my husband was a gamer too, so he had gamer night. Yeah. It's sacred. It's for him. It's every Thursday night. But anyway, he was like, "What? And there's receipts for this, and there's a video there, and they timed it here, and it was absolutely outrageous. And this woman is going to still sit there and insist that she has never seen any evidence. Yeah. Well, I hope she's having a few sleepless nights.
I'm pretty sure she is at this point. He's probably worried about what Mike Merkel may say about her and the others, because now he's in a bind. Usually when an animal gets scared, they'll do anything to get out of wherever they're at if they're in a trap, and he may turn on his own people.
Yeah, I would be very nervous. Because I can only imagine, there's no honor among thieves. There's just not.
No, exactly.
And if he thinks he can save himself, he's not going to care about anybody else.
I agree wholeheartedly.
It just amazes me, and I have to come back to it, that they chose to convict an innocent man of murder, allowing a killer to remain on the streets.
And I mean, really, frankly, with the evidence that even the minimal amounts that they collected, they would have had a slam dunk case against her. Had they done a proper investigation, they would have had volumes of information and evidence against her.
They were so deep in trying to convince themselves that you did it because of things that Pam said. They had no choice but to continue on, hoping that things like what's going on now would never come to light, that their wrongdoings would stay buried with them in the prosecutor's office, when they would have had more respect, and it would have been a lot easier to just say, hey, you know what? We've been following this trail. We've learned that it is a false trail. We're going back to square one. We do not believe that this man is guilty.
Well, Joel gave Leah that opportunity way early on, shortly after I was arrested, and she turned it down. He was like, hey, you can go out here and say, hey, we made a mistake. We think it's this person over here. It's not this guy. She's like, well, you haven't gone on TV saying we got our guy. He's like, hey, I'll go out there and help you.
Yeah.
Offered to help make it good and smooth it where she would look good and she could go after the real killer. But she didn't want no part of it. She didn't want any part of it at all. And like a horse with blinders on, all she could see was me. She didn't want to look at anything else around her. And now they're all going to pay the price, I hope.
Oh, I hope so. It's taken forever. I'm sorry. It's taken this long, but it feels so slow. But it is happening.
Joel and I were having a conversation last week when this all kind of started on Tuesday, and that both of us were just amazed that it's been going on as long as it has, and that we have the relationship we have. I mean, under normal circumstances, if everything would have went the way it should have, he would have gotten the charges dropped, and that would have been the end of it. We probably wouldn't be the friends we are today, but now we're forever tied together because of this.
Yeah. Well, your friendship was forged in fire. He saw the light of justice and just said, no, I'm not going to abandon this guy. This is just absolutely heinously wrong. And I love Joel for that. He's an amazing attorney. He hung in there, man.
And I want your listeners to hear this part. And, you can say a lot about attorneys. A lot of people can say a lot about Joel Schwartz or whatever. But, he's always been a man of integrity to me. And last week when we were having this conversation, when the charges came down, and he's done this before, but he was literally thanking me for not firing him after I got convicted, because I totally had every opportunity to do it. And most people would have under normal circumstances. But my reasoning was, I could see, even a child could see, that I had an unfair trial. I still had trust in Joel. And the one thing that struck him about me when I very first met him the first time was, again, he had integrity and he was an honest person. And at a time in my life when nobody but my family and friends wanted to believe me or listen to me, he was one bright and shining light that did. But to this day, he still thanks me for not firing him and not giving up on him. And I think that speaks who he is as a person.
Yeah, he saw the forest through the trees, and he appreciates that you did as well. Yeah, because think about that. You lost the case, you get convicted, sent to jail, and stuck with the guy. But the thing is, Joel did everything right between the madness of the prosecution and the ineptitude of the judge. I mean, he tied both of your hands behind your back, and you're supposed to try a case that way. But you saw that, and I appreciate that he even thinks that way. That tells me a lot about him as a person. You're right.
Yes. I've enjoyed seeing him work over the years now. I mean, we've known each other for over 13 years now, so I've gotten the opportunity to see him work, not just on stuff for me, but on other things. And he is amazing to watch in court. If you like to watch court things and see a good lawyer, he's very good at what he does. And the way I likened it, kind of like you just did back then and through the years, is that first trial, he was kind of like a boxer trying to fight a fight with one arm tied behind his back. You're not going to be very effective if you're trying to fight a boxing match that way. And that's kind of what happened to Joel in the first trial.
Yeah, he did everything right. He just couldn't make his case the way it needed to be made. Thank God for the second judge. But, I started off saying I wasn't a real fan of defense attorneys. I take that back. Some defense attorneys, like the one that was saying that this is a victimless crime. Yeah. But then you have someone like Joel who really fights for his clients. And thank God. Whew.
And that's kind of a testament, that there are still some good people out there, whether it be an attorney or, people think I'm against law enforcement. I get people asking me that all the time. I'm not against law enforcement. I don't not like police officers. I don't like dirty police officers. And I don't think anybody does. And the people that hate them the most are clean police officers. And good police officers, I have several of them that are friends of mine. And, they all agree and they're embarrassed.
Well, you said that when he was doing the perp walk, you said everybody kind of came out from inside the station to kind of watch because they are embarrassed by this guy. I taught high school for 30 years, and anytime there was a headline about this teacher did such and such, or I would just die inside. Oh, it just killed me because everyone knows you're a teacher and now is she one of those? And it just, you feel the weight of it when people go bad. And I'm glad that they came out to watch the bad apple being taken away. That's great.
That was kind of a testament, because it happened in their county. So definitely I think they took it personally, even more personally than other law enforcement officers might, because it makes them all look bad, but especially that particular county, that community.
I was going to say, how are they doing at rebuilding trust? Because I think it had to have been badly damaged.
Well, it's slow. And I mean, it's kind of like the old saying about draining the swamp. You're not going to drain it all in a day. And they're still not perfect up there. There's still things that go on that most people don't agree with or whatnot. But Mike Wood is trying. Rick Harrell is trying. One of Mike Wood's principal prosecutors that he works with is a gentleman by the name of Delaney Harms. And he's got a reputation that precedes him. And he's very good. He's very fun to watch in court, as well as Mr. Krameyer that presented the case yesterday to the prosecution and all the arguments. So it's really refreshing to see that there are good people in these fields. And it's a reminder to the community. And I think they're doing a good job of trying to get past it.
Well, good. You're right. It's going to take time. It kind of has to fade from people's memories. And until all of these prosecutions are done and all of the charges have been brought, it is going to take a while longer. But we just hunker down. And like you said, be patient.
Yes, I mean, everybody knows that there were more than just Mike Merkel involved in law enforcement in my case. And so they're wanting to see that come to fruition as well. And there are many people that are waiting for the Pam Hupp trial coming up next summer in August. And that's going to be a big one to help the community heal.
Oh, boy. I can only imagine. But that absolutely needs to happen. My God. I mean, what this woman has done. And I still have to think if they had not lied under oath about evidence that didn't exist, you wouldn't have been convicted, wouldn't have had to go to jail, wouldn't have had to have a retrial. She would have had attention placed on her. And I believe Lewis would be alive.
And her mother.
Yes. But it's a victimless crime, Russ.
Right, exactly. If you think about all the people's lives that she affected and tore apart negatively in one way or another.
Yeah.
Either directly or indirectly.
Yes. Well, we're going to have to do this again when Pam comes to trial. There's no question about that. But let me ask you something. How are Russ and Carol? Never mind all these people and their horrible behavior. What about you guys? How you doing?
Well, Russ and Carol are doing fantastic. Enjoying still being newlyweds, having gotten married in October of 23 now. So we're coming up on a 2-year anniversary.
We're very, I guess you could say, unorthodox in the way we do some things, because this year, for our first wedding anniversary, we went camping, just the two of us. I'd never been camping before. For our second anniversary, we're going camping with 4 of our friends.
I think that's fantastic. I
But
love
you
camping.
be outside, you be away from them if you want to be.
No, I don't have a problem with them going or anything. I'm just saying most people, they just go to dinner together, this, that, and the other. Not us. We just invite our friends to take care of shit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I used to camp all the time, and my husband is a veteran, and he's like, no, after being in the field, I can't do it. So we will go glamping. We'll
Okay.
get a nice cabin in the woods and, cook on the barbecue and stuff. That's about as camping as I'm going to get. And it's like, okay, I can live with that.
There's nothing wrong with that.
Well, my husband's a senior citizen now, so that's probably how we'll end up doing it before too long.
Well, yeah, there is something to be said, sleeping on an air mattress in the ground. Oh, good for you. That's absolutely wonderful. I think that's fantastic. Because I watch your pictures on Facebook and you're so freaking cute.
Yeah, we like to go out and do a lot of fun things. Most of the time, we just like to go out and listen to music because we like music, and all of our friends like music. We like to dance and whatnot. So usually on the weekends, and sometimes through the middle of the week, you'll find us at the local establishment listening to some of the best local bands.
Yeah, listen, I love watching you guys live your best life. You deserve it.
Well, that's what you got to do. I mean, there's bad things that happen to everybody in life.
You
Sometimes
can let it make you bitter. Or
worse
you can let it make
things
you better.
or happen to people and you don't even understand why. But it's how you move on from it, right?
Yes. Well, God bless. You guys are absolutely wonderful, and I love you to pieces.
And bless you as well. We appreciate you having us again, as we said.
Oh, yeah. We got some things coming here. Again, we'll have patience and let it happen in its own time. But I do believe in karma, and I do believe that this is his upcomings. When you do bad things, be prepared, because it does come back on you.
Eventually, just like, we were talking about patience and everything and how long all this is taking. And I have people ask me that all the time. Like, well, I live with the peace that they're going to get what's coming to them either in this life or in the next.
Yes. I'd like to see it in this one for now.
Yes, most of us would, but sometimes it don't work out that way. So
Yeah.
I just keep my fingers crossed, pray to the good Lord above, and I keep doing just what you said, living my best life and enjoying myself. And when I'm needed to help karma along a little bit, like if they need me for a witness or what have you, or yesterday's bit, then I will be available for those things.
Well, there you are. Well, thank you guys so much. Again, I love you both. You make me smile.
Well, you're awesome, kid. We appreciate you.
Love you, bye.
All right, guys, be good. Well, I enjoyed that. It is always a delight for me to speak with Russ and Carol. Mike Merkel's trial is pending. Pam Hupp's trial is scheduled for August 2026. So the wheels of justice are rolling ever so slowly towards the finish line. And that guarantees that there will be more updates. Thank you for listening. In 2 weeks, episode 125, part 2 of The Five, The Untold Lives of the Women Killed by Jack the Ripper, by Hallie Rubenhold, will be released. And again, thanks to my Patreon murder bookies. Now, in part 1, episode 123, we learned about the lives of the working poor in Victorian London as Jack the Ripper terrorized Whitechapel in 1888. We met Mary Ann Polly Nichols and Annie Chapman, the first 2 Ripper victims. Our story continues in part 2, as we'll travel to Sweden and then back to Windsor and Whitechapel in Britain. All of the victims deserve to be remembered as more than just unfortunate prostitutes. They came from diverse backgrounds and had rich lives. So get ready for part 2. I will also be releasing a series of special episodes over the summer, so subscribe to stay updated. Remember to use the code MurderShelf and save 10% on your CrimeCon Denver 2025 badge. You can contact me at jill@murdershelfbookclub.com or find me on X, Facebook, Instagram, and I'm on YouTube too. Don't forget the sunscreen. See you in 2 weeks. Written and produced by Jill, all rights reserved. Music, The Pewter Elephant by Blue Dot Sessions.